Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Doing Business in Bentonville. I'm Andy Wilson, and thank you so much for joining us again. Before we get started and before I introduce our phenomenal guest today, I'd like to say to all of our viewers and listeners, thank you. Because of you, we are now viewed in over 100 countries, and we're about to also prepare our 100th podcast. So to all of you, thank you for making this happen. And now on with the best part of the day. My guest is Stephen Graves. Stephen, welcome.
Hey, Andy, thanks for letting me be here with you. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, listen, I got to tell you, okay, I was telling Steve before, I could just spend this whole show talking about him. He's such a great guy, and we're friends for years, too. That's another thing.
Yep.
And I've been, he and I have been seriously 2 months talking about this or something, to get him here, it takes taking 2 months. Let's just get it right. And but Steve does a tremendous amount of things, Steve. And I mean, first of all, you coach and assist great CEOs around the country, and you really get involved with them and help them become better leaders, right?
Yeah. That's my core business, and it has been for 2 or 3, 4 decades. Coaching CEOs, business owners, and entrepreneurs. And I usually have, Andy, one or two huge global, perhaps public company CEOs, and then I'll usually have 3 or 4 private, often family-held businesses, and then I'll usually have 3 or 4 kind of gunslinging entrepreneurs trying to exit or merge or roll them up or whatever. Yeah. And I worked across all industries, and so I'm not an industry specialist.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my world. I get to journey with some really wonderful CEOs.
That's wonderful. And I will tell you, in our conversations we've had throughout the years, the past years, you've just given me, at times Stephen gives, he gives me one word. And then I was like, that's exactly the word I needed today. And then I would take that word and just go with it. But also, Stephen, you've authored 20 books or more already.
I've written a few books. They're all short. They're all really brief. And I'm more of a street back writer than I am a classroom or pulpit out kind of person. In other words, I socialize a thought or two, and I'll work it in the streets for a while. I just finished a book on stewardship. Mm-hmm. And I probably have been socializing that concept for 4, 5, 6 years with leaders and stuff. And then I'll finally sit down and I'll kind of try to put it into a book form on the backside after the fact. That's kind of been my normal routine in life.
Well, that's excellent. Well, I love that idea you just talked about. I mean, that is such a great idea. And okay, for our viewers today, I will also, and listen, you need to go to stephengraves.com. Check this guy out. You'll see all the stuff he does. You'll see everything about him, and you really need to do that. And we'll have that on our website, too, for your information, and a lot about him. Okay, today, here's what we're going to do. And you need to just I know a lot of you listen to us as you drive, so buckle up your seatbelt. If you're not listening to us, hold on, because this thing could get crazy and awesome for you today. So Stephen's going to begin, and he's going to talk about an article that I read recently that he wrote, and I will tell you, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And then we're just going to go back and forth. So again, if you could see our desk here, there's not a lot of script laying around, and it's not. This Stephen and I had a 5-minute conversation 2 days ago or something. So but Stephen, talk about. I love what you wrote about leadership. And, what leaders need to have, I think what you said, in their toolbox.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, then let's just take that apart a bit.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much written about leadership. There's just tens of thousands of books written every year. And so by no means am I saying that this is better than anything anybody else has ever said. Just from my experience, again, after years of working with just thousands of leaders, it seems like to me there's 3 qualifications or 3 differentiators around the concept of leadership. And all I was doing, this was a blog that I wrote. I have a weekly blog that I write around leadership and strategy, things like that. And so I had three big ideas or three seminal ideas. Number one, facilitating is not leading. Facilitating is not leading. Number two, no strategic plan will self-execute. That's kind of the second big idea with leadership. The last one is inspiration is not a substitute for strong leadership. So those are the three ideas that we talked about that we want to unpack a little bit. And there's so many different directions you can go about leadership, but these are just three observations that every senior leader at least needs to be able to say, yeah, I'm getting that one done. For example, and facilitating is not leadership. Facilitation is the idea that I'm basically being a very collaborative leader, and my primary job is to kind of play the sheepdog of making sure all the sheep are together, all the sheep hadn't wandered off, they're all going in the right direction. And one of the books I wrote is called The 5 Tasks. And I really believe that every senior leader's primary job at the end of the day is to set direction, set speed, set risk, set resources, and set culture. Well, I can be a collaborative leader and get those things set, or I can be a top-down leader. It's not a personality thing. It's a matter of me making sure that I'm doing the job that leadership asks me to do. If I'm the CEO, it's my job to get those things set. Well, facilitating is me collaborate in a collaborative fashion, making sure that everybody gets heard and everybody is being able to say their thoughts, and all that's critical. But at the end of the day, simply facilitating movement and facilitating activity is not always synonymous with leading. Sometimes leadership requires me to step out ahead of the pack, or maybe even against the pack. Like if I'm setting speed, so set direction, speed, risk, resources, and culture. Well, no business sets the speed of the market. You set the speed that you're going to relate to the speed of the market.
Right.
And so it might be that a CEO or a business owner says, I want to speed up the way we're going to relate to e-commerce, as an example, here in Walmart world.
Right.
And so you might speed that up. Well, your team members might not want to work that fast for a couple of years. And so the first one is leading and facilitating are not always the same experience or effort from the leader.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And what I want to let me take a take on that for a moment. As I thought through that direction that you laid out. What I did when I read that, I thought back to my earlier career. And in a lot of our, people know that I spent almost 30 years at Walmart and did a lot of jobs under that umbrella and some other things. But when I thought back, and I want our listeners to think with me for a moment, that when we're young leaders, we are given a lot of advice, a lot of guidance, a lot of support, a mentor.
Yep.
And we're, they surrounded us. Walmart surrounded me with great leaders, a mentor, homework, you name it, And so I had that. But then I began to think, as we begin to grow in our leadership positions and, so-called move up the ladder, if you will, then we have less of that and we get less of that. And, and then what happens if we're not careful as we move up and we get fewer feedback, then if we're not careful, then we'll begin to make some mistakes and some guidance and need guidance. But sometimes, we just get moving fast.
Right.
More responsibility comes, more timelines. You're working. And that's when I thought your 3 points were so helpful, because if we're not careful, we'll get off track.
Yeah.
We'll get in the ditch.
Yep.
We won't be in the middle of the road anymore. And we will develop some bad habits as leaders. And what you're talking about is that we're going to remind you today of these 3 powerful principles
Yeah.
that we're talking about. And if you're in that ditch right now, let's help you get back in the middle of that road.
Right.
And if you have made some mistakes along the way, we'll talk about that a bit more later today, how you can get back really being productive as a leader. So I think what your first point is powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Andy, your point, the kind of the double click you did on that one thing. I mean, leaders, we just get loaded down with stuff.
We do.
And the stuff is different. The lower you are in an organization, the more the stuff is really about just task, doing a list, getting stuff done. Well, the higher you get in the organization, it becomes more strategic, it becomes more conceptual, it becomes more thought leadership, it becomes more decision grid kinds of things.
Right.
We're having to decide, are we doing this, are we doing that? But it's still heavy and it's still loaded down with stuff. And so, it's amazing how many executives can just literally find themselves inside the rat race, which we've heard that term many times, where we're just kind of running the treadmill of just getting stuff done over and over and over and over. And we're not necessarily elevating our leadership muscle set. Like if I'm an executive, I'm a leader. My primary job is to lead, not just be a doer. I'm like, I can get my to-do list done, but can I lead a functionality or a giant vertical, or can I lead all the people at Walmart like you did at one time, or whatever? And so it really comes down to a question of leadership, which makes us ask and answer, how's my leadership scorecard?
Yeah.
How am I really doing in my leadership? Not how am I doing in my task, but how am I doing really with leaders? And that's, and often, we get our promotions based on doing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Not necessarily being a great leader. And then all of a sudden somebody changes it from fresh water to salt water, or they change it from red to blue or whatever. It becomes a change. And now the new criteria for judgment and leadership, for judgment and evaluation is my leadership, not my ability to just get a punch list done.
Right.
And that's a big shift for people often.
Let's take that one word you used and let's go down that just a bit. You talk about change. And I think this is where sometimes leaders get hung up. And one of the things that, working in Walmart all these years, and fortunately I was around Sam Walton early on in my career for lots of years. And one of the things he would do, he would bring us officers together on a Friday morning, and he sensed things. He had a great sense, because he was out with the customers all day. Right. He was out traveling stores and distribution centers. So he had his hands, and we were all out doing traveling and listening to the customers, and that could be another podcast someday. But anyway, one of the things he would do, you could tell it. He'd bring us in, and he would come in, and he would be pretty serious, and he would say, "Now, listen up. The most consistent thing at Walmart is change."
Yeah.
And when I was running HR, he one day asked me, he said, "We got to put change on the evaluation." I said, "We'll figure that out with some attorneys." But anyway, and so, but he said change, and here's what happens in change. To your point, and I'd love to hear your thoughts around this, but sometimes it's hard for leaders to see in the midst of change, because it's like driving in the fog, I think. And when you put those lights on bright, it's the more difficult
there you go.
to see. Yep. And I think what we need as leaders, that's where we get off course, is in the midst of change at times.
Yeah.
And the most consistent thing, and that's why Sam would warn us, change. Team is change. So he would basically have us to take a step back and see, let us look at where we were leading.
That's correct.
Teams, where we were going, and if we were embracing the future of change. So your thoughts on that, because as we did that.
Yeah, well, it'd be really interesting. to think about how that kind of mindset permeated the culture of Walmart all these years and all these decades. And to some degree, that's still Walmart at its core. Its ability to change with the market, change with the customer, change with stuff, whatever happens in different markets or whatever. And so, I mean, a good leader has got to be able to know how to be someone who can help their team and their company embrace and navigate change. And as a general rule, most people don't like change at our core.
Yeah. Right.
Like I was thinking about this the other day.
Yeah.
I was trying to think back when they actually opened 49 between Fayetteville and Bentonville. And I can't remember 20 years or 25. I don't know.
Like 25 years ago.
Yeah, like 25 years ago. Well, like right now, I live in Fayetteville. Yeah. And so right now they're doing all this work down on College Avenue and there's one lane. Well, it's a college town and we've got 28,000 kids and we're not built for a one-lane town. No. Like we need roads, big roads and wide roads. Well, it's irritating. It bugs me. It's not. But you know what? It's going to be a little bit like 49. Like, I'm so glad now that somebody had the insight and the foresight to say, hey, we need a bigger road system to hook up these 4 towns or 5 towns in Northwest Arkansas. Well, at the time it was happening, nobody wanted to do one lanes and nobody wanted to be stalled out or have to take a detour road or whatever. But I'm glad somebody had the vision to say, to embrace change, because the benefits of change are huge to the people that live them out on the backside.
That's right.
And so, but a leader's got to be able to say, hey folks, I know this is a little different. I know there's not the same thing that we did last year. I know things have changed. Right. I know your world has changed, but guess what? We need to do it. We got to do it. The market requires us to do it.
Right.
And so I need you to lean in there with me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think you're right. I think you're key. Sometimes leaders, we got to step back, and that's what sound was actually getting us to do: is step back and look and think, and look at the change around us and how we then would go forward. And the best way Sam taught us was that let's talk to our people. What are they seeing? What are their thoughts? How are we doing? Are we on course? We're not on course. Are we off track? And that's why we travel to the stores all the time and talk to our customers.
Yeah, that's great.
And so I think that's where we're going now. Okay, your next point.
Yeah.
But I think it was really powerful what you said, that we got to step back from time to time and review and listen.
Yeah, and if a leader doesn't do that, who is going to do it? Because everybody's locked down to their to-do list. Yeah. Everybody knows. Right. I mean, like, very few people showed up today. Today's Monday. Very few people showed up today to their work not knowing what it is they're supposed to get done today or this week, as a general rule. And I know there's some creatives that are still figuring stuff out for the week, but generally people know what's required of them this week as a general rule. Right. And so we get our head down and we just go to work. Well, a good leader has to float above all of that and say, hey, what needs to change? Yeah. A good buddy of mine and yours, a guy named Tom, used to talk about a lot of how you do Friday payroll and invent the future at the same time. And that's the dance of a leader. How do we do the stuff that's required of us on our to-do list today based on promises from yesterday or yesteryear, but at the same time make sure that we're embracing an invention or an innovation of making sure that we're not just the same person in the same company year after year after year after year, because that's where you wake up and you're a Kodak. That's where you wake up and you're a Kmart or whoever, and we'll just to pick two out. Yeah. Because if you're not changing, then you'll be the one that pays the pays the cost of it. Okay. The second kind of insight is no strategic plan will ever self-execute. I get paid to help leaders think about strategy, and excuse me, and I love what I do. I love it. And so what I'm saying is I've seen some really, really nice strategic plans through the years, really good ones. I mean, that had some really smart people baking into them. But at the end of the day, it takes people, it takes a leader to actually take a plan and execute it.
Right.
Pull it,
Yes.
pull it out of the document and out of the packet or off the page and get it done. And there's just never an occasion that the plan itself is just going to automatically do the hard work. The leader is the one that's got to do the hard work of making the hard choices and decisions that the plan calls us to do.
Right. At Walmart, again, I apologize using that example, but, I spent a lot of time there. So, but anyway, and there's many other examples I could probably use. But the point is, at the end of the day, it was about execution. I mean, and I know I was at this panel discussion one day, and it was me, and then it was my counterpart who I really liked at a company called Target, and it's a great company, and I really like Target. I shop at Target also. So, but anyway, the point was we were going. They had us on stage, and we were going back and forth, and I think we were more entertaining the audience than anything. And because we were up there together, and I was running the people division of human resources at the time, and so was he at Target. So, and we were up there, and so he gave me a blast, and I gave him a blast, and I had the last word, and I thought, okay, what can I say? And I looked over at him, and I said, at the end of the day, you can talk about all these wonderful things, and they are great. I said, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do at the end of the day. We're going to execute.
Yeah.
And I'm going to execute you. That means I win. And, we did that. We shook hands, and it was all fun. But that's it. You got to be able to execute. And, I read something, and I'm going to read it, but it's something that talks about the lack of execution. Because when I was reading your point, I thought about what happens, how do we have the lack of execution?
Yeah.
And I think this author that wrote this, he said one of its companies fell. And I'm going to read you a few things. He says, the reason companies fail or organizations fail, the projects fail, but back to your point of execution, he said, an incremental descent into poor judgment. Now, that's a pretty powerful statement.
That's great.
Okay? And he says, a success-oriented culture, mind-numbing complexity, unrealistic performance goals. He says, when you mix all that up, he said, the violation of the standards become the standard. What he's saying is we lose our way.
That's great.
I mean, really, we just sort of lose our way in this whole process. So how do you not lose your way? That comes the question, right? Because when you lose your way, execution does not happen.
Yeah.
It gets mixed up in all the stuff.
Yeah.
It gets mixed in unrealistic profits, unrealistic performance goals, or the mind-numbing of the complexity of the organization. Right. I can't even get through it.
Right.
Right. Or you're just so focused on this success-oriented culture, you just hammer away at it, and people get disoriented about it. So when I read this, I thought that's confusion.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your thoughts?
Yeah, I love those. I love those 3 or 4 statements of why companies fail. I mean, and I completely agree with them. 100% agree with them. It actually introduces the weight and the need for good leadership, because you could make the case in some companies that the leader is the one driving hyper demands of success, or the unrelenting blue sky that never says we can ever reach a goal, or the leader is the one injecting too much complexity. There's a lot of people are complexifiers by nature. They're wired that way. And that can be a great person, but when you have that as your senior leader and they're setting a complex structure, a complex structure is really, really hard to ever have high levels of execution and high performance. because everything is always layered. And so I think I love the statement of why companies fail. Love that. I think one thing it does is it makes us ask, am I as a leader introducing any of these components? Am I the source? Am I the person leading it in? And then if I'm not, am I the person that's going to smoke that out, call it out, and say, hey guys, y'all are making this way too complex. I'm not saying it's not complicated, but it's not complex.
Right.
It's not. It's not just a two question. It's not like 2 + 2. Like there's 15 numbers on each side of the equation. So it's a big formula problem.
Right.
But it can be solved. We just got to slow it down and solve this big giant problem like right now. And so, like nobody probably wants to talk about tariffs right now.
Right.
But if you're in retail, you're scratching your head trying to figure out what we're going to do. And so you've got to solve problems without making them more complex than they're supposed to be. So I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes the leader can be the person introducing these failure symptoms, or they're not, but their job is to make sure that they smoke them out and they find them, and then they say, hey, we're not going to operate like that around here. Like we're just not going to do that, because if we do, guess what? We're going to be one of those companies that won't execute and won't perform.
Right.
As a rule.
Right. And today in the market, this moves as fast as it moves. We've already talked about changes as fast as it does. And if you're not executing daily, moving forward, then you're either at a standstill or you're moving backwards. And I will tell you, your competition will move past you.
Oh yeah, totally.
And it's so obvious today. You can see it.
Yeah.
And if you're an older company, you really got to look at this stuff. And and your company is so much moving and so quickly. But even at a newer company, you can overcomplex things.
Yeah.
And so what I think what you're saying is we got to have clarity all the time. And if it's not, and how do you find if it's not clarity? Talk to your people.
Yeah.
Talk to your customers. Talk to your people that work close to you, and do what exactly you said. I think that's critical.
Yeah. I mean, the need in today's world is, there's no question, you have to have thought leadership. I mean, somebody has to be thinking on behalf of the direction of the company and the speed of the company and all those things. Right. But as a general rule, if a company is not bent toward execution, then there's a real problem. Because again, execution won't automatically happen. Right. It just doesn't, because people get busy doing other things. I mean, we've all heard a million times the squirrel, chase the squirrel. A squirrel comes across my path, and then and they're interesting, and there's so much noise in today's world, and there's so many new things to read, and here's what people are doing. And so if I'm not careful, all of a sudden I find myself, I'm an expert on what everybody's doing, but I might not have moved my mountain of dirt much that day. And at the end of the day, it's about a company, to your point on the panel, which I love, it's about which company can outperform its competitors in execution of the right thing.
Right.
Correct. And when you get those done, you've won your market segment for that season at least, and then you get to go play another season. Right.
Okay, your third item. This is great, Steve. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Loving it. So the third idea is inspiration is not a substitute for leadership. This one is a little bit tricky to get your head around, because all good leaders have an inspirational element to them. All good leaders have a visionary, life can be better than it is now, the future can be brighter, and the sky is bluer and bigger. And so there's an inspiration thing that most really good leaders have inside kind of their voice and the way they carry themselves. People love to follow inspirational leaders. But at the end of the day, being inspirational is not automatically synonymous with just being a leader. A leader has to make hard calls sometimes. A leader has to call out like your what makes a company fail. If I've embedded one of those failure elements into the culture of my company, and it's rooted in and it's reproducing itself, day after day and week and month after month and year after year, like a leader, like I need to be inspirational, but I also need to come in there and like do some heavy, hard confrontation of something that's wrong. And so we just want to be careful that we don't overbundle, that leadership is always the happy, smiley, inspirational, life is good, it's only good news, Years ago, I remember I wrote another little blog, and I said, I was observing leaders, and I said, leaders that I watch that do the best job of growing their team, like people who are really growers of other leaders, it seemed like they're doing a combination of a whisper in the ear, a pat on the back, and a kick you in the tail or in the butt, And so a leader that's always just patting you on the back, well, that's fine. Sometimes I need you to whisper in my ear and tell me something different, or I might need you to kind of kick me in the tail one time and say, hey man, I need you to pick it up a little bit. I'm not sure what's going on with your life and your world. Happy to talk about it, but we're in a really high fast load right now, and I need you to pick your game up if you'd like to play this role with us as the VP or the SVP or whatever. So it's really important that we don't overbundle that leadership is only inspiration. It is inspiration, but it's more than just inspiration, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. It reminds me of a story. One of my trips with Sam Walton, and when I became an officer at Walmart, I was 30 years old, so I was one of the youngest officers, and so back to that mentorship, and then again, because I was so young, and Walmart was looking at we've got to bring a lot of young leaders in and up in the organization because of aging in the company at the time, and so and somehow I got there, and so the point was I was mentored, and a lot with some really great men and women, and one of these days I'll talk about Harriet Bailey, and the late Harriet Bailey, how much she helped me through my life, and because this is just a great story of her mentorship for me. But one day I got this call from Sam's assistant and said, hey, Andy, are you going to Baton Rouge, Louisiana at the grand opening tomorrow? Of course I am. It's my area. I was over in that division in the South, and of course she knew I was going. Sam knew I was going. And she said, well, really, really good. You get to go with Sam. He's going. So none of us wanted to travel with Sam. And the reason was that A, he flew his own airplane, and B, that was a little scary. And then secondly, we had to go. So I was trapped. I said yes already, and all my colleagues laughed at me, said, she got you cornered in, you'll learn, And so the bottom line, I got to go, and we'll talk about this another time because it's such a great story, in my opinion, a learning for me as a young leader. But we went to Baton Rouge, and we looked at a lot of stores in Louisiana that day, and we came and landed back pretty late that day on Rogers, Arkansas, and we had the FBO there. That's where we had our airplane. Walmart had their airplanes, and Sam got in his truck to pick up and left, and we shook hands and had a great day. There's a lot of learning, and one of these days we'll unpack all that. But I sat down at the FBO, and by myself, it was late, only the mechanics were there working on airplanes and servicing for the next day. And I just sat down there because I needed to think about my day.
Wow.
And one of the learnings, to your point, and I thought of this when I was reading your article, one of my learnings was that you talked about, we talked about humility for a moment, because it's what you have to do, as you were talking. But here's what I wrote, and I'm going to tell you what I wrote that day. I said, humility, what I seen in Sam Walton, that's my observation of the day with him.
Right.
Humility is not a weakness. It's a strength.
That's awesome, Andy. That is awesome.
It's a strength. And, as a leader, you have to see that, and you've got to use that as a strength. And because what leaders do is connect people and ideas and execute, to your point. And that's exactly what you have to do as a leader, is that what I've heard Sam do all day was listen to people and put his tape recorder and say, I'm standing here with a certain person in a department, and tell about this great idea. Maybe it was in apparel. I remember one lady had a great idea how the distribution centers were loading trucks, and how she got her freight and her apparel, and how she had to do 3 times the work in order. But her idea was, if we could load it this way.
Oh, wow.
Sam put in his tape recorder. Here's what she didn't know, is that tape recorder tape was laid on Becky's desk, and she would transcribe that, and she would transcribe it, and everything needed to go to certain leaders in the organization to get stuff done, to execute. The next day, if you were that leader that got that transcript from Becky, you picked up the phone and you called Mary at store 364 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and said, yesterday, I understand you were talking to Mr. Sam, and you gave him this idea. Well, I'm the one in charge of that. How can we explain this a little more to me? What really do you need? How do you need the truck loaded? Now think about this with me. There she was, unloading freight. Now she talked to the chairman of the company. Now she's talking to the person in charge of that loading of that truck.
Yep.
And now she's telling her idea. Now think about this with me. When she goes home yesterday, she probably told her at dinner that she talked to Sam Walton, the founder and chairman of Walmart. Now she's going to go home and say, not only did I talk to him yesterday, but today the guy in charge is going to use my idea.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome.
Okay. Then she's going to see that truck's loaded differently when that next truck comes in. But that's humility.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why it's a strength.
Yeah.
And that's how leaders need to use it. But it forms the whole conversation we began with, is execution.
That's great. That's great.
And that,
So, I've long said that over time, people only implement what they understand and what they buy into.
Well, that's powerful.
And we can engineer some people. I can engineer people to do some activity one time, but if I need you to be a sustainable executor of something over time, and I'm not there, but you're doing it, I need you to understand it. I need you to have bought into it. Yeah. Well, she had an idea. To use your story, she had an idea. She explained it to the chairman, Mr. Sam. He understood her problem. He bought into her problem enough that it got on the tape recorder, and then it pushed itself back down, all the way back down to her. And so, that's a wonderful example of execution. It's also a wonderful example of a ton of other things, obviously. But when you go through that, when you tell that story, Andy, I've lived here since 1985, and so I've watched Walmart through the years since 1985, obviously pretty closely, and that story captures the kind of culture that Walmart has always tried to embed into, its people, whether there was 1,000, 100,000, 1,000,000, or millions, because it bends itself toward being heard and executing, which is huge for any company,
Okay, our time is almost up.
Yep.
I can't believe it. I don't want it to be, but I know we want to stop before you quit listening.
Yes, please.
Stephen, hit those 3 points again as we close, because there again, thank you. That was such a great discussion with you.
Yeah,
so hit those.
Three principles or 3 insights for your leadership toolbox. Facilitating is not leading.
Okay.
Number 2, no strategic plan will self-execute. Number 3, inspiration is not a substitute for leadership.
Wow. Okay. Now I'm going to when we sign off here, I'm going to beg Steve to come back. So I just want you to know I'm getting out, whatever it takes to get him to come back, Stephen. Thank you. It's been so wonderful having you.
Thanks, Andy. It's been fun being here with
Man,
you.
I want you to come back.
Yeah.
I do. And I would tell you, check Steve out at StephenGraves.com.
Yeah, it's actually, Andy, it's Stephen R. Graves.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Stephen with a PH, StephenRGraves.com.
Thank you.
That's where all my content is. And then also you can go to Cornerstone Co., like companies, cornerstoneco.com. And that's kind of all of our coaching practice and all that. So those are the two sites that somebody can always find me on.
Well, we're going to also have those on our website,
Thanks.
dbbnwa.com. We'll have all that up there. We'll put a nice photo of Steve up there too, so you can see him, check him out. So again, to all of our viewers and listeners, thank you so much. It's been wonderful being with you. Again, thank you for your just your wonderful viewership. You're just helping us to have such an impact around the world. Stephen, my friend, thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Okay.
Great to be here.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.